Hi lovelies, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be going about the cutting and the sewing of this beautiful bustier palazzo jumpsuit you see right here on the screen. So it also has these flowered rows at the two sides on the bust, as you can see, and it also has pockets. So if this sounds like something I'm really interested in learning how to do, please continue watching. It's never going to be a thing of regret, and without much ado, we'll get started with what we have for today. So here with me, I have 3 yards of cotton fabric, which is pink in color, as you can see right here. I drafted my half scale bodice block behind the camera for the front and the back, so I'll be explaining what each of these lines stands for. So I created my neckline. I also got my shoulder and my armhole as well. So this line now, which I labeled my CL, is my chest line, and the one labeled BP is my bust point, UB is my under bust, and the last line is my half length. I divided my nipple to nipple point of 8 inches into 2, and I created my darts right there. So I also replaced my darts and also gave this 1 inch stitching allowance. Now I'll measure what I have between my BP, which is my bust point, to my under bust, and mine is 4 inches. So placing the tip of my tape exactly on my dart on my bust point line, I'm going to mark these 4 inches all around, making sure that the tip of my tape is exactly on my dart, as you can see right here. So while you are creating your dart, from your bust point you just come down by 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to mark this 4 inches, which is the distance between my bust point and my under bust, all the way around until I get to the other side of my under bust. So you can see that the tip of my tape is exactly on my dart, and I'm just marking this 4 inches all around, which is the distance between my bust point and my under bust. So it varies from individual to individual. Okay, so now I've gotten this, you can see what I have right here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to actually create my sweetheart neckline, because this our dress has a sweetheart neckline. Right now, from my chest line, I'm going to trace this dot I've made this way, and when I get towards the armhole, I'm just going to connect it this way. So you can actually go ahead to use your curve rule to achieve this. So this particular curve rule I had here with me is not the best type of curve rule to use while achieving this actually. So you actually need a curvier curve rule. Okay, so I just tried as much as possible to do this, but it wasn't sitting perfectly. So you can go ahead and just use your free hand to do the same thing I've done right here, using the dot you've made as your guide. So now that I've gone ahead to trace this out, I'll go ahead now and cut exactly as I've. So right now you can see what I have right now, and we're not fixing a yoke to this dress. So I'll move over to the back part. So for the back part, remember that you're meant to leave your 1 inch, which is for a zipper allowance, and I wrote it right there, my zipper allowance. I also created my dart. I believe we all know how to create our dart. So this is all for it, and under my half length, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch away from that my zip allowance line, and I'm going to go up by 6 inches. So this is me trying to create my zipper slope to avoid bulginess at the back of our clothes after fixing our zipper. So now after that, I'll come to my chest line, and I'll come down by 1/2 inch this way. You can actually maintain your chest line for the back, but for me, I don't want to. I came down by 1/2 inch, and from the armhole, I just slightly connected it this way. So this is all I need to do for this, and I'll go ahead and also cut this out. So I have a detailed tutorial on how to draft a half scale basic block in case you don't know how to go about that, which I'll be linking in the description box. So I'll cut off that part, and this is all I have. So here is the front and on the back as well. You can see they are the same, and it corresponds on the armhole. So I'll move over to the trouser part or the lower part of our jumpsuit. So you have to fold your fabric into 2, which I've done right here, and from the folded edge you just have to mark 4 inches. So 4 to 5 inches actually, depending on your body size, but the minimum you should mark is 4 inches. All right, so mark these 4 inches up to the full length of your trouser. So for this trouser, you're going to subtract your half length from your full length. So the full length I'm working with right here is 59 inches actually. So I'll subtract my half length of 16 inches from 59 inches, meaning that the length of this my trouser will be 43 inches, and I'll add 2 inches extra for my hemming, and that will make it 45 inches. So connect all these dots into a straight line, and from the top part of your fabric leave few inches away and mark a straight line, which will be your guide and also your waistline. So on that line now, I'll divide my waist circumference by 4 and I have 8 1/4. So while placing this, you can see I started from that line where my 4 inches stopped. So now I minus that my half length of 16 inches, I place it under my waist and I counted down 8.5 inches, which is my hip length, and then I counted down 11.5 inches, which will be my crotch length. So I'm also going to place my tape down so you all can see I'm still doing the same thing right here. So to get your crotch length, divide your hip circumference by 4 and add 1.5 inches to that. Okay, so when I place my tape down, you see that it also corresponded. I have my hip length of 8.5 and also my crotch length of 11.5 inches. So on this second line, which is my hip line, I'll divide my hip circumference by 4 and mark what I have right there. So you can see that my markings is starting from that line, from the folded edge of my fabric towards the other side. All right, so connect these 2 points together this way using a curve rule from the waistline down to the hip. Then in a kind of slant manner, place your ruler this way and extend that line on your hip line to your crotch line. So having done this, now I will measure what I have on my crotch and now divide my thigh or my lap circumference from there. So from that point, mark it towards your center front. My thigh is 26 inches, divided into 2 is 13 inches. So you can see that it's actually extended towards that my allowance I marked from the folded edge of my fabric. So from that point, to go up by 1.5 inches and now create a curve to meet that point, which is my thigh circumference divided by 2. So from this point now, I'll get the middle of this my crotch line. So from that point to there, I'll place my tape and I'll divide this into 2 equal halves. I'll make a point which is the middle of this my crotch line, and then this line I'll extend it to the full length of my trouser. So my table is not wide enough to accommodate everything at the same time, but you all will still see it. So the length of my trouser now is 43 inches and I'll add extra 2 inches. So altogether I'll be marking 45 inches as the length of my trouser. So I went ahead to first mark 30 inches. I pull my fabric and I'm going to place that 30 inches on that mark I have right there to get 45 inches. As you can see, I've marked it right there. Then I'll extend that line, which is my hem line, and now bring down this line, this my center line, all the way down to the full length of my trouser. So I'll come to my crotch line and measure what I have from that point to this other point. So what I have there is 13 inches and I'm going to subtract 3 inches from that, and I have 10 inches. I'll divide this 10 inches into 2 and I have 5 inches. So that 5 inches will be on that center line as I marked my 10 inches. Okay, so this is it, and the next thing for me now is to connect this from that point, which is that point where my thigh circumference stopped. I'm going to connect it all the way to the ends of this my trouser. So do it for the both sides with your stretch ruler. So if you have a longer stretch ruler, it's totally fine. If you can do it with your free hand, is okay as well. So whichever one is available to you, but make sure that you actually connect these 2 lines in a straight way. Okay, so when you are done with that, just go ahead and cut off all you've drafted so far, because we are done drafting the front part of our trouser for our jumpsuit. So when you get to the top part of your waist, you're actually going to leave half of an inch away from your line, which is going to be for your joining allowance to the upper part of our dress. So after that, now I also folded my fabric into 2 and placed the front part of one of my trouser panel on it. Then I pinned. Now on the crotch area towards the folded part or the center front, so you're going to mark 1 inch this way, following the shape of your crotch. So when you get to that cuff part on your crotch, you stop. Then from beneath that part, exactly on your crotch, you're going to mark 2 inches all the way to the full length of your trouser. So we always add all our allowance to the back part of our trouser, all right? Then for the side or the hip side of your trouser, also go ahead and add 1 inch. So all of this is for our stitching and joining allowance. Okay, so if you don't go about adding all of this allowance, you end up having your jumpsuit or your trouser so tight on you. Okay, so for these are jumpsuits, on the waistline you are not going up by anything, unlike the normal trouser pattern where you go up by 1.5 inches on the waist. But for our jumpsuits, you don't do that. Okay, so that is just the slight difference between a normal trouser and also a jumpsuit. So you're going to cut everything equal on the waist, but for the sides you also cut on this your allowance. As you can see, I'm also doing right here. So after cutting this out, you can see what we have. So we are done, and I'm going to cut out all of this on my fabric. Now this is the front part and the back part of my dress, and you see I also added stitching allowance all around. For the top part, for the back part, I actually added 1/2 inch at the base and at the top, and I also went ahead to notch my dart as well. So for the front part, at the top part, you can see that I added 1/2 inch, and I'm also at the base, and I also notched my dart, which is very necessary. So I'm going to keep the back part of my dress aside to work for the front. So I'm removing my pattern paper from my fabric, and I'll spread this out, and you can see what we have. So the next thing is simply, okay, I have to cut 2 pieces of this, and please don't forget we are cutting on fold. Okay, so for the front parts, cut out 2 pieces. One is for the main fabric, one is for the lining. Okay, so go ahead and stitch in your dart just exactly as you've notched. So I'll also cut out for my strap, so I'll need my paper for my guide. So we know that it's not the same thing, so you need to bring your paper, that upper part which we cut out, so you really need it while doing this. So I measure from my shoulder down to that point where I cut off is 8.5 inches for the back. Then for the front, from my shoulder up to that point where I cut off is 5.25. okay, so I'll add it up, and I had around 13.25. so I'm going to get this fabric, and I marked 13.25. you can see right there, and I also added 1 inch. So this 1 inch will be 1/2 inch for the front and 1/2 inch for the back while we are fixing our strap. So we'll all do it together. So for the wideness right here now, I'm marking 3 inches. So this 3 inches will be for the wideness for the 2 straps actually. So after marking it now, I'll go ahead and use my scissors to cut it out. So after cutting this out, I'll fold it into 2, because our strap is quite tiny. All right, so I'll fold it into 2 to get the middle, and I'll go ahead and separate this. Now we'll have 2 pieces, so it will be for our strap. Okay, so folded into 2 will be 1.5 inches equally. So I'll fold it in this way and stitch, and now turn it over. So this is it for the front part of my dress. So I've gone ahead to fix this my roses on it, which I'll be showing a detailed tutorial how to go about that. So this is not what we are here for today. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to actually extend this my dart to the top part of my dress, because I want to fix my strap exactly on my dart line. Okay, so this is why I'm doing this, and I'll go ahead now to notch. All right, so I'll go ahead to notch that part. So I'll share a detailed tutorial how to go about this rows. Okay, so now I've sewn my strap and also turn it out. This is what I have. So I'm going to place this my strap exactly on that notch I made this way, as you can see. So place it on top of your dress and pin exactly on that notch. So when I must have done this, I'm also going to get the other piece which is serving as my lining. I've also taken in my dart, I've stitched in my dart. So make sure that they align, especially at the middle or the sweetheart parts. Okay, so right sides facing each other, you're going to pin this all around. So after pinning this at the top part only, you're now going to stitch or join using just 1/2 inch. So if you want to join or stitch, you're going to start from that deep part of your sweetheart neckline and join one side. So mark 1/2 inch all the way around up to the armhole and stitch. All right, so you're going to do it for the both parts. When you stitch from the middle to the one part of the armhole, stitch from the middle to the other part of the armhole. So I've done this, and at that center part I went ahead to give this a slight notch. Be careful not to cut your threads. Okay, so this is for it to relax very well by the time I turn this up. So after doing this, also go ahead and iron this properly. Okay, so by the time you iron this properly, it will come out better. So after this, I'm going to start working for the back part of our dress. So I'm going to get the back part of our dress and place it right here on top of the front part. So this is it. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to place it on the front part of our dress, and I'll just go ahead and pin the sides first. I'll pin the sides first, okay? So for this back part, I'm also going to stitch this our strap on the darts we have, all right? But I'll be piping this so that I can have a neat finishing, so that you don't end up seeing the joints on my dress, okay, for the strap. So this is the reason why. So I'll do this together, okay? So I pin the sides, and after that now I open this up to the right side. So while placing your strap, please ensure that you do it properly, because one part of my strap was twisted when I was done. I had to lose this. So just carefully place your strap, okay? So I'm placing mine exactly on the darts for the back. That is where I want my strap to sit on, all right? So I also pinned. So when I now pin this way, I cut out this piece of fabric, and I'm pinning it now on the right side of my back part of my dress, as you can see I've done, and I'm going to stitch using 1/2 inch and turn it over and stitch. So it's actually called piping, and you can see how neat this is looking so far. All right, so the next thing now is for me to arrange this on the armhole area and now join this properly on my sewing machine. So after pinning, the stitching allowance I gave this while I was drafting was 1 inch. So I also marked that 1 inch and use it to join this my dress together. So I'll just simply go ahead and join this when I'm done marking, all right? So after marking this, I also went ahead to measure out my body measurements, and it was exactly the same. It's corresponded. So it's very necessary you do that as well, okay? So now for the front part, for the lower part of the trouser parts, I've actually gone ahead behind the camera to also cut out for my pockets, because it has pockets, which I'll be dropping the link in the description box. Place them right sides facing each other. This is for the front panel of your trouser. On the crotch area, as you can see I'm doing right here, right sides facing each other on the crotch area, all right? So you're going to place them this way and join using just 1/2 inch. So I've joined them, and you can see what I have here so far, okay? So I'll get the one part of the back panel of my trouser. So here's my pocket. You can see what I have so far. So the link to this particular tutorial on how to fix your pocket will be in the description box. So I got one part of the back panel of my trouser. Then I'm going to get the side and now pin it to the side of my front panel of my trouser, okay? So I have to pin this first from the waist, make sure it aligns. So if you notice very well, you realize that the front panel of my trouser at the top is kind of in a block shape. This is because of the presence of the pockets, which I'll be trimming off following the shape of this back panel of my trouser, okay? So you see now. So that's just as simple as it is. So I'll go ahead now to mark 1/2 inch. You are joining with 1/2 inch irrespective of your body size or whatsoever. So you're joining with 1/2 inch at the side after pinning and stitch all the way to the end. So I did this for the both parts of my trouser, and you can see that all the parts are stitched at size the middle, okay? So right now I'm going to join the upper part of my dress to this lower part right now. So this is what I have after joining, you can see. So I'll get the middle of this upper part of my dress, and already the crotch joinings I have for the front part of my trouser is already serving as my guide, as the center part of my trouser. So I'll just get the middle of my upper dress and now pin it together with that part of my crotch on my trouser. So open up the crotch before you pin, unless you weave this. Then you're going to pin it all around on the waist area, just as I'm doing right here. Then after pinning, you go ahead and join using just half of an inch. Okay, so after joining, this is what your should look like. This is the wrong side and this is the right side of my dress. So the next thing now is to join the crotch for the back part of our dress. Okay, so you know we are fixing a zipper to the back. Okay, now from the waist, after placing it this way, from the waist you're going to mark down at least 7.5 inches. Okay, shouldn't get up to your hip length. Okay, so mark 7.5 inches. So from that 7.5 inches, you're going to stitch this using just half of an inch. So make sure that you double stitch at that point all the way to the ends of this crotch. All right, so when you must have done that, you're now going to get the front crotch and the back crotch. Okay, this way you're going to make sure that that middle line aligns. Okay, after stitching your crotch for the back, so this way you are going to pin just the same way we join our trouser. Okay, so when you now pin, you're now going to join this way. Bring the front part and the back part of your trouser, the part that is still left open, so that's the part you bring together. So from the hem, you're going to run a stitch all across to the other side. So I've gone ahead to do this. You can see what we have, and I've also joined that remaining part of our trouser. Okay, so like I said, make sure that the line of the crotch in front and the back aligns properly. Go ahead and fold in the base or the hem of your trouser, and I'll also show you on the right side that this line aligns, so you can see. So the next thing is to actually fix my zipper to this my dress. So my zipper allowance is usually 1 inch, so I'm going to mark 1 inch now at the back part, from that part inward. So when I mark this 1 inch, I'll place my zipper on that 1 inch and pin straight. So because of I don't want to have this excess long tail of zipper, I took it up. So when I'm done stitching, I will cut off the excesses and now finish up that top part. All right, so before you cut off the excesses of your zipper, you have to zip down your zip and now cut off these excesses. So as I've pinned, you go ahead and stitch. So you're pinning the right side of your zipper on the right side of your fabric. When you stitch, it will be flipped automatically to the wrong side. So that's all you have to do, and after doing this, you are going to achieve exactly the same look as I have on mine. And I'll show you a detailed tutorial on how to go about the rules. It's actually very detailed, so it was getting so long, that was why I didn't include it to this particular part of the tutorial. But please stay tuned for the rose part. And when I was done doing all of this, this is exactly what I have. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate. To all my subscribers, you all are amazing. If you're yet to subscribe, please kindly do so. It's never going to be a thing of regret. Until some other time, see you all in my next one. Bye.